Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. We have fresh new data from Germany and of course I want to present that to you. You might remember that earlier in the year I was often referring to EuroMomo, the European Mortality Monitor, because I wanted to show you the raw mortality data from European countries, because that is data that cannot be faked really. I cannot see how you would fake raw mortality data from a certain country, and this is why I trust that data and not some weird test that is being done under weird conditions in different countries, but raw mortality, and then you can infer from that what was really going on in the country. And I was always telling you, for some reason, unfortunately, Germany is not contributing data to that database. Only the state of Hesse and Berlin are doing that, and they weren't really affected earlier in the year. But now we have German mortality data that the Robert Koch Institute, I think it was, published on one of their daily update papers, I would say, their update sheets. And I want to share this data to you. It actually confirms what I've been telling you throughout the year already. I think it is very important to look at this raw data because it runs completely counter to the narrative that is presented to us by the mainstream and public media in Germany and by the German government, by Angela Merkel. And I want to make the point in this video that it doesn't matter how hard your country is actually being hit by this China bug, but the narrative of these globalists that might or might not have the power in your country, but that of course will dominate the globalist corporate media and the international media, these people will always present the same narrative no matter if it agrees with the facts or not. This is why we will be having a look in this video today on actual raw data and not at potentially subjective or manipulated data or narratives by the media, but raw data. Alright, but before we do that, I want to thank my subscribers and my supporters. Thank you guys, you are the best. If you like videos and reports and data like this, like, share and subscribe. If you want to support my work, you can do so directly via PayPal or support me via Patreon or Subscribestar. Alright, so what is the narrative at the moment? What are they talking about? They are talking about now to limit the freedom of movement within Germany. While irregular travelers are still free to move around however they want, German citizens are no longer allowed to move freely in Germany. And also in Munich, for example, they have a curfew, and after hours, like after 10 p.m., they don't want to sell alcohol anymore, or they want to actually force restaurants, bars and pubs to conform to a ban of the sale of alcohol. German history buffs know that there was a Bavarian beer war when the beer prices were raised by a couple of pfennigs, so pennies. But now they want to ban the sale of beer altogether. After 10 p.m. at least, I think there will not be a second Bavarian beer war because these younger Bavarians of today, they just don't have it in themselves. And tomorrow, on Wednesday, Angela Merkel will meet with the governors of our federal states in order to decide on new restrictions and new bans for German citizens. So that is the policy side. This is the narrative side. They act as if this is a dangerous thing. They scare the people, they make them afraid in order to take their freedoms away. But let's turn away now from this narrative policy side and look at the scientific data. Fortunately, the Robert Koch Institute, that is a part of the German state, they published the official data on this China bug. Let's have a look at it. So first, let's look at the curves that everybody knows in Germany that are used to make people afraid. That is that now the number of positive tests per day and per calendar week are going up again, and we're almost at the level of the spring when this quote-unquote first wave rolled over Germany. Then there is a second curve where you see that there are hardly any mortalities, there are hardly any deaths now. And this is a curve they don't discuss so often because it just doesn't lend itself to make people super scared. And now let's look at the curve that I have been discussing a lot already, and that is the ratio of positive tests of the overall tests. And you see, earlier this year it went up to over 10%, and now it is around 1%. And that is still, it went up a little bit from 0.78 to 1.5 or whatever, but it is still around 1%, which is still within the margin of false positives. This is still noise. This is not a real signal. I said that in former videos, but you see it here again. And this third curve that I show you today, this is already a curve that almost nobody knows in Germany. But now the fourth graph that I will show you is something that really almost nobody knows. This is really new. It was recently published and I want to show it to you. Here you see mortality data from this year 2020 in Germany with a calendar week resolution on the x-axis. And you see the sinusoidally shaped background signal. You know, in winter there are just little more death than in summer. This is this wavy background. And on top of it, you have several spikes. And I should say first and foremost that the raw signal is that on the upper level that is around 20,000 a week. And superimposed on that, you find these spikes or these unusual events. They're not that unusual, but they're deviating from this annual background signal. And you have this blue curve and you have this blue shaded area. And the solid blue line is the average mortality by calendar week from the years 2016 to 2019. And the light blue shaded area, that is the bandwidth. So that is minimal to maximal for the given calendar week. And the red curve, that is 2020, right? And you see that the annual flu, that is this peak around calendar week 10, but it already builds up from the beginning of the year. It actually starts already in the previous year, but that is the annual flu season. And you see that this signal is much bigger. It is much higher over the background than this little peak that we have in calendar week 13, which is the China bug in Germany. And then also notice that in summer, around calendar week 30, or for 2020, it's more like 32 or something, there is a spike in summer, and that is the summer heat wave that I also mentioned in my video where I presented the Euromomo data from other European countries. And that is just in summer, there are 1 or 2 weeks where it's, definitely hotter than in other weeks, and elderly people, they fall victim to that from dehydration or heat stroke or something like that. They don't drink enough, or their apartments get too hot and they don't really, their constitution is not strong enough to survive that. And you see that the China bug can be compared in mortality completely to that heat wave rather than to the flu. You see that the flu is actually a much larger mortality signal than the China bug was in Germany. So in other words, in 2020, less people died from the China bug than in previous years on average by the flu. And it is actually more on the level of a summer heat wave. And this is now what all the fuss is about. But of course I predicted that because the official China bug mortality number was always, after this wave was basically over, it was around 9,000. And 9,000 over half a year is just not a lot, because you see, in any given calendar week, approximately 20,000 people die anyway. And I want to stress this one more time. This data contains all deaths in a calendar week. It doesn't discriminate, there are accidents, there is diseases, everything is in there. The cause of death doesn't play a role here. And the way that you can extract now a certain disease or a flu or something is by the transient signature of the signal. You see, it goes up, it goes down, it's gone. That is a typical wave of the flu or something, and it is the transient shape of the signal that is used for fitting it on the data and extracting the numbers from the raw curve. That is how it is done, and it is very reliable, and it's done for the flu every year actually. And this is how this lower curve was determined. You see around the 0 value, this lower red curve, this is the China bug signal that is extracted by curve fitting, and also correlating that with the test results we had on a given day or in a given week from this raw data curve that is more higher on the y-axis here, around 20,000 per week. And I want to state one more time now that I know that some countries like Spain, Italy, Belgium, the UK and so on, they have been hit really hard. If you go to Euromomo, you see standard deviation or like 40 times the standard deviation over normal. That is a significant big hit, and the official numbers also tell you, yes, there were a lot of people falling victim to that disease there. But in Germany, as I always told you throughout the year, it is not significant. It is not a lot. It is actually less or on the order of an average or mild flu actually. So, but that is only one piece of the puzzle, how many people actually die from that. That is not the whole story, of course. This is actually how it differs from a flu. People normally are hospitalized much longer. So the worry was, will this overwhelm our medical system? Will the hospitals become overcrowded like it was in Italy and Spain? But in Germany, when you look at the numbers, our hospitals are empty. There are entire wings of hospitals that are deserted. Doctors and nurses are being sent home. They are having short labor. That means they are partially already on unemployment time because there is no work for them. They are bored. They don't have anything to do. That is the reality if you look at the numbers, how busy our hospitals are at the moment, and they're not busy at all. Also, when you look at the general trend, at the general nature of this disease, you see that only 1% are in critical condition. All the other people have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, and therefore don't need to be in a hospital. And that is why our hospitals are not overcrowded. They have nothing to do. Yeah, it's not really that scary. But they don't care about the facts, they don't care about the science anymore, they just want to make people afraid, and they are using that in order to take away people's liberties, to destroy small businesses, family-owned businesses, to put people out of work, to create mayhem and chaos in society so that they can introduce global corporatism, big industry, big multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations, and the rule of communism. This is what they want to introduce, and they want to use this panic that they themselves created, no matter what the actual science, what the actual data says, in order to realize that, in order to bring that about, in order to destroy our people, our societies, and introduce this new globalist world order. And make no mistake, this is not where the crazy train ends. It is a ratchet. The crazy train doesn't have a reverse gear. It doesn't have even brakes. It always accelerates, and we are gonna be seeing more craziness in the coming years. We will see more surveillance. We will see more totalitarian, authoritarian measures and overreach from the side of governments, more censorship, more propaganda. And I will try my best to correct that and to call it out where I need to. So make sure, if you're interested in that, and if you haven't done so already, to check out my older videos about Euromomo and about mortality data. Very interesting stuff, a good database, I think. And also check out my next videos, which will be about the new crazy restrictions and measures from the government that are being enforced and enacted in Germany very soon or already right now. Take care, Servus, Kameraden.